Well, welcome to Change My Relationship podcast. My favorite thing to do is to interview someone who has worked through a relationship difficulty and kind of gotten to the other side of it. Not that everything's perfect, not that, everything's wonderful, but this is real life. The real life of the difficult marriage in her case and how she responded to it. And we're going to talk about the things that we typically do and why it takes so long to get to a point where you change set boundaries, and then we're gonna have a good outcome that we're going to be able to share with you that I'm really excited about. So first of all, welcome, Rachel.
Hi, my friend.
Yes. Oh, Rachel's been emailing me for about 15 years, you said?
Yeah,
Yeah, talking to me about her relationship, reading my stuff, following. That must have been right when I started getting online at the very beginning
yeah.
and going back and forth and emailing me. So I'm very familiar with her journey and I'm very excited that things at this point are going really well for her and her husband. So we're going to go ahead and get started where I always start with, which is your childhood. What was your childhood like?
I was raised on a farm. Had three sisters and a brother.
Hmm.
Um, we had a great time because we had lots of cousins and we played outside all the time. My mother and father were not affectionate. They were very hardworking, almost like an Amish Puritan type of people, like it's
Hmm.
a sin to have fun. They never kissed me. They never held me. They
Hmm.
never asked any of us how we felt, what our dreams were, if we were hurt. Uh, I kissed my mother when she was 55 years old, going into surgery for breast cancer. That is the first time I kissed my mom, and I felt really weird. My father hugged me at the end of my wedding reception. That was very awkward, also.
Hmm.
So I was unloved. I felt very alone.
Yeah.
Um, no one wanted to know who I was or what was inside me.
Yeah, definitely. And back then, I bet you they didn't have a clue that they needed to do any of those things because their parents hadn't done it
Uh,
and they
their
probably
parents
didn't.
were very strict, yes.
Yeah.
And my mother would point to her heart and say, "No one is going to get inside here." And to her, that was a strength.
Whoa. Wow. So
It
she
was a way
was,
of protecting herself.
yeah. And so no one meant even her kids. Like she wasn't going to let
That's right.
herself be emotional because that
Nope.
was a weakness and she needed to. That tells us, do you know what happened to her as a child? Other than them being strict, was there abuse? Were they?
The only thing that she expressed anger over is the fact that my father got her pregnant so many times, and she was so angry about that. And she really expressed a lot of anger about that.
Yeah. Well, and that is translated to a child of you don't want me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I never felt that she wanted me. I would cry at night so she could come rub my legs. It was a way of getting her to touch me,
Oh,
pay attention to
sorry.
me.
Wow. Well, so what was your husband's childhood like?
I wasn't raised near him. I never knew him, but from what I was told by family members and himself, he has three brothers, and they also enjoy the outdoors, playing and stuff like
Mhm.
that. I did find out that his mother was she was the dominant one in the family. She was the disciplinarian. Um, his father was meek and humble and mild as my father was. Uh, and I'd ask him, I would ask him all these years, how did your mom discipline y'all? Did y'all have any problem? No, no, he never said they had a problem. It wasn't until we went through couple talk that he answered that question and said, my mother addressed things with anger and screaming.
Uh-huh.
And after 17 and a half years, he finally admitted to it. And according to my sister-in-laws who've known him all their lives, his mother was very overprotective, and she felt that her sons could do no wrong.
Oh, whoa.
Like if the principal called or anything, she always took up for her children. They all had marriage problems. My husband's been married four times. I'm his fourth wife.
Oh my goodness.
And whenever they had problems, it was always the woman's fault. It was never her son's.
Uh, Huh. That's a
And
good way to raise entitled sons.
this is very, very important because you see later on in my story that when this past Christmas, when I went to his brother's homes in Georgia to visit,
Hmm.
I got to observe the family dynamic and ask a lot of questions. And I realized that my husband and his brothers are emotionally disabled.
Yeah.
His brothers are narcissistic.
Yeah.
They're malignant narcissists. They don't hide it. My husband is covert.
Yeah.
To me, he hides it from everybody. He's Mr. Whatever. I'm getting away from the childhood, but anyway, his all his brothers are like that. So it had to be something in the family dynamic. I just knew that all these years. It's
Yeah.
got to be it.
Absolutely. There's a direct connection. So, how did you meet your husband, and what was your dating relationship like?
We met on eHarmony when eHarmony was a Christian company. It's no longer a Christian company.
Hmm.
Uh, I was working at a newspaper. He was the manager of business, uh, working for a credit card company, and I wasn't looking for a man to marry for his money, but I raised 5 children alone. I was below the poverty level, no credit. I'm like, I just want to be in a two income family. I really want to. And he was just looking for someone to go out with occasionally. His wife had died. So we met on eHarmony in February of 2007.
Hmm.
Our dating relationship was like a honeymoon. We were like giddy teenagers. Like my kids thought it was disgusting. And we got married in September of that same year.
Okay. All right. So, no problems in the dating
Oh,
relationship.
he was Prince Charming. He
Yeah.
was,
Yeah. Not unusual. What was your early marriage like, and when did you start having problems? And I'm hearing you say your children were all and his were all raised. There's no
yeah,
kids in
yeah.
the
We didn't
home
have
at
any
this
children
point.
in the home. No.
Okay.
At first it was wonderful. He was sweet and kind, and when we had to talk about something, he'd bring me to the sofa and we'd sit on the sofa and hold hands and discuss things. And I'm
Wow.
like, wow, my this is my second marriage. My first husband, he was uncommunicative. He was
Mm.
not affectionate either, just like my parents.
Yeah, just
But
like
he
your parents.
embezzled money. I divorced him because he embezzled money and I lost
Mm.
everything I had. So uh, to have someone hold me and to want to talk to me was like amazing. And then I noticed that he kind of had a level of frustration after a while. I'd be in the kitchen, I'd hear him in the office, and he would drop an ink pen, and it was, oh gosh, blah, 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 blah. Every little time he was inconvenienced, he was frustrated. And
Mm.
then he started getting like he was critical, and then he was negative, and it was towards other things. And gradually it turned towards me when I expressed an opinion. Oh no, you shouldn't be. Why are you buying Diet Cokes? You don't drink that much. We can just drink. I mean, he was trying to control what I bought. Every idea I had was he would get angry because, and it didn't take me long to realize that even if I just expressed an opinion, he got very, very defensive. It was like I was questioning
Mm.
his knowledge, his worth. So uh, it just started getting worse. It's driving home at Mardi Gras season. My grown children go to Mardi Gras. I'm a Christian. I don't want to go because there's a lot of drinking and pornographic stuff. And he said, I'd like to go to a parade. I'm like, well, I don't do that. And we were in a car and he lashed out at me, called me a fanatic. And then it just became commonplace. I never knew. Some of our biggest fights were about frozen hamburgers versus fresh, where to put the rice cooker. He got mad about inconsequential things and
Mhm.
blew up way out of proportion. And that was a pattern that would follow. That was the crazy cycle. I don't know if we're there yet, but um, it would get. I mean, I can tell you one instance where I'm an outdoor person and I was raised on a farm. I'm a hard worker. I pressure washed the house, the
Mhm.
patios, all the sheds outside. He came outside and saw a paint chip on the house and just let me have it. Broke my heart. They just criticized me, and I can't tell you. But anyway, so that's how. So I didn't know what that was. I looked it up. I remember going to look it up on the computer. I'm like, oh, this is verbal abuse, and my heart just sank. I can't believe I'm being abused, and it was just puzzling me. And I would wait. I would wait for it to stop. I say, okay, it's going to end, or maybe if I don't say this, it'll stop, or, and then we go through a cycle. He'd do that. I'd withdraw, cry. Things would smooth down, and then you never know how many. He ruined my daughter's wedding for me.
Oh.
He ruined it from fighting and holidays, vacations, family gatherings, anniversaries. You never know when it was going to, just.
So would he react like that around other people too?
Oh, no. People call him Mr. Smiley.
Okay.
He's a deacon in the church. He was the director of Sunday schools. And he was, oh no, if he would ask people, they'd say, no way. There's no way.
So even around your kids and his kids, would he do that?
Around his kids, he does it. He has a son. He doesn't treat his daughter like that, but his son, he brought his son into the family business, our business, and he abuses his son. I've heard him on the phone with him treating his son like that, and that would traumatize me all over again. I'm like, why are you?
Yeah.
And so I took his son aside. I said, we have this problem. I'm trying to get him to stop. Why do you let him do it to you? You need to tell him no or to stop. He says, I'm used to it. That's how he raised us, and that's how I treat my girlfriend, and that's how I treat my daughters.
Whoa. Wow, that's not good.
So eventually, the good news is eventually I got him to stop. I said, your son quit going to church because he says you're a bad example. You're responsible for your son turning away from God. You need to fix that.
So he did.
He apologized to him, and I've never, every once in a while I get a little aggravated because his son can be annoying, but it's not. I never hear it. Good. If he does abuse his son, I haven't heard it.
Wow.
In about maybe 6 or 8 months.
Wow, very good. So how did you respond to this? Did you tell me all the things you tried?
Well, I need people to know this, that like when he would hurt me, it was a deep physical pain in my heart. I thought I was having a heart attack. I found out there is something called broken heart syndrome. Look it up, where you do have a physical reaction in your heart. I was devastated. I would cry and cry and cry. You know how much I cry. And then I would just withdraw. And I would just withdraw from him, and I didn't want to talk to him, and I would cry. I'd cry all night. I'd stay up all night. What could I say? Okay, maybe if I'd have said it this way, what can I do next time? How can I bring up the subject again? And it was like a constant, like in my mind, just a psychological. I called it psychological warfare. That's what it was.
It is. It's really hard.
Then when I would cry, he would get upset.
Yeah.
Oh, and he would mock me. He would say, "Here we go again, pouting around the house for a week." That was even more hurtful than what he did, than what he was yelling at me. And we have to go through this 5 days of you not talking, and then so after a few days, we were just like, it was awkward. Then we'd start talking to each other, and then it was back to normal till the next time.
Yeah.
I just went over and over, and I got tired of it. And the more it went on, the more abusive and the more degrading and demeaning things he would say to me. I don't know why I'm still here sometimes, because I try not to dwell on it. He would tell me I should be thankful that he didn't beat me.
Whoa.
That if I thought I'd be better off with someone else, go try it, because I wasn't going to find better than him. We went to 2 marriage conferences. He threw them back in my face. He mocked my faith. Oh yeah, you want to read your Bible, cry, go do some research, watch YouTubes on marriage after I go to bed, blah, blah, blah. He'd make fun of me. I mean, it was horrible.
Yeah, all of that is emotional abuse, along with verbal abuse.
Very much so. Very much so.
And spiritual abuse, if he's bringing the Bible into it. And I mean, that's also using your faith to abuse you. And but wasn't there a time that, I mean, you talked to him about his son and confronted him about that? Did you confront him and say, this is abuse, this needs to stop? Did you try to talk him out of it?
Uh, I tried to explain to him you can't the level of pain and that I didn't deserve it. Oh, another thing he had no empathy. It was like he was
Mhm.
soulless in those times. And he wasn't like this the whole time. I want to tell you, we met, we had so much in common. We loved to travel, we loved to go to historic homes. We both great cooks. We love to cook. We love to entertain. We love to read. We love to garden. We love our chickens. That's so when it was good, it was great.
Yeah.
Great. But this was like a whole other person. I remember one time me crying so much I went in the bedroom to pray. And he came in the bedroom and he said, "What are you doing? This is important." He says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm praying." And he sat on the edge of the bed and he was talking to me and trying to, I don't remember what he was saying. And then he got in the bed, he knelt on his knees, he wrapped his arms around, he was rocking back and forth. And he says, "I'm trapped, I'm trapped, I'm trapped." I was like, what in the world? And to me, it was a manifestation of his spiritual condition. Satan had him trapped. And I told him, I said, "Do you know Satan is trying to destroy our marriage?" He says, "Yes, I do." But he wasn't going to do anything about it.
Yeah, right. Because that's the pride and the arrogance that
Very
it's
much
not
so.
me and I'm not gonna change. And yeah.
And then he blamed me for the very things he did to me, he was doing to me. He would blame me, tell me I did that to him.
Yeah.
He was the victim. "I'm so hurt. You're hurting me." I mean, he twists words. I read somewhere that one of the things they do is talk to you in a confusing language and make things confusing.
Hmm.
It's just another type of abuse.
Hmm.
It's pretending to not understand you. That's what I'm trying to
Exactly.
say.
Absolutely. It's pretending, it's projection when he's accusing you of doing the things that he's doing to you. And that's gaslighting because he is pretending that you're crazy and you're making it up and he's really the victim. And there's it's all kinds of stuff. It's all part of it. So
Mhm.
it's typically, narcissists use abusive tactics. They're narcissists, so they're abusive. Abusers, not all abusers are narcissists,
Mhm.
but the narcissists use abusive tactics. And
Mhm.
but the rage and the out of control anger, is also typical of narcissists because they are angry that you are crossing them or that
Mhm.
you're challenging them or that you're telling them that there's something wrong with them. But he had rage inside of him, like you said, from things that had nothing to do with anything.
Mhm.
And it's also very typical that narcissists where you don't know what's going to set them off. Abusers
No.
too often, you don't know what's going to set them off. You can say something. When I teach about abuse, I tell the people listening, I say, what's one of the things that's just totally crazy making about this is the abuser can ask you to do something and you can do it and be really happy you did it. And then you can do it again and you are raged at for doing it. And that's so confusing because it's like, I'm doing what was asked and now I'm in trouble. It's because it's to keep you off of balance. It's to
Yeah.
keep you wondering, is it me? What am I doing? I'm going to keep trying to figure out what to do. Like you said, you're thinking, well, maybe I shouldn't have said it this way. Should have. So it's keeping you in feeling responsible for trying to figure out how to keep them from being angry and keep them
Mhm.
from being abusing you. And instead of saying, this is abuse and I don't deserve this, it keeps
Mhm.
you so off balance that you're just constantly trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I got in a car accident, had a traumatic brain injury and post-concussion syndrome. We came home from the hospital and he's putting on Facebook, people saying, "How's Rachel?" And he said, "Rachel's fine." And I'm like, "Baby, I don't think we should put that on fine yet."
Yeah,
He lost it. He pushed me back in the chair and he was raging and screaming at me for making that comment.
yeah, right.
Come to find out in January, I started having memory problems,
Hmm.
brain fatigue. I was not fine.
Right, of
But
course.
and we went to an attorney. He said, "Don't put anything on Facebook." I told you that, but that's just kind of show you the kind of things. It's like
Yeah.
I find that if I was successful at something, I think sometimes he was jealous of
Oh
me.
yeah. No, that's challenging and competitive. They're competitive. They don't want you to what's called one up them. You can't be
Mhm.
better than them. So they have to pull you back down.
So when I joined the church and married him, I became active in the church, very, very active. Started a lot of programs, did a lot of things that never been done before. It's just like a little busy bee. And he he dropped out of his Sunday school. He's dropped out of his leadership role. When I got involved, I never understood that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just, he doesn't want the competition, usually, most likely. That it's just that, okay, if you're going to try to show me up or you're going to be doing this, then I'm not going to compete with you, or I'm not going to try. Or did he accuse you of taking it away from him?
No.
No, never did. Okay, well, that's good. So the whole idea of this crazy making experience, that cycle, crazy making cycle, very, very common in narcissistic and abusive relationships. So what was yours like?
The crazy cycle?
Yes, the
Oh,
crazy cycle.
like I said, he would blow up about something, and it could be minor, and I would get extremely hurt, and cry and try to explain and try to make him understand, and it was pointless. And then I would just withdraw from him. I would just cry. I'd go to work. I'd cry all night. I'd stay up and cry, and then as it went on, it got more frequent. He got uglier in the things he would say, and louder. And that's just what it was like. And then we'd make up, but I truly nothing was ever resolved.
Right.
It was swept under the rug. Nothing was ever resolved. I wanted to resolve things. I wanted to bring things back and talk about them. Don't you dare do that.
Yeah.
If I brought something up and asked him to discuss it more, that would make him very angry.
Yeah.
And then he would get angry because he said, I can't believe you think we have a marriage problem. He would get furious if I suggested help, getting help. Furious.
Yeah.
I can't believe you think there's something wrong with our marriage.
Yeah. And so, and that's another part of the whole abusive stuff, is the discounting your feelings and your experience and telling you there's nothing wrong. It's also, that's gaslighting your own experience. Very common. All of these are very typical elements of abuse and narcissistic relationships.
We started a ministry together of healthy eating, teaching people, and we were doing it together, and he would do the scientific part and I would do the spiritual aspect of healthy eating. And he gradually, when it was my turn to talk, he said, well, I'm going to open up and say something first. And then he would take up my time. And eventually one day he told me, he says, what I have to say is more important than you. I said, it's all yours.
Wow. Wow. So what did it take for you to draw a boundary and say, I need to separate or divorce, I can't do this anymore? And was the first time recently, or were there other times that you did that?
No, there were times when it got so bad that I would leave. I was like done, and I would get up and go in the bedroom and start packing. And where are you going? I'm like, out of here, and he'd follow me to the car. Don't leave. And so I would come back inside, let's talk. He'd say, so come back inside, and I'd tell him, I said, look, I'll keep setting the same boundary. If you start to get agitated with me, raise your voice. I can tell that it's going to go sideways. I'm going to walk away. I'm not turning my back on you. I'm not leaving you. I'm not being rude, but I'm going to get in the car and I'm going to go to Walmart until we both cool off and we can come back and talk about it.
Good.
But he didn't. It didn't make any difference. He got me back, so just wait till next time. That happened about 4 or 5 times, and then I left, and I got as far as the church parking lot, and he'd call me to come back. And one time I didn't come back. I stayed there about 3 hours, and I would not come back, and that made him very angry that I stayed there 3 hours. As somebody who was a newspaper reporter, I love to do investigative reporting. The reason I didn't leave is like early, I wanted to find out why is this happening? I want to understand. I figured if I understood why, then maybe I could do something, or I could make a better decision whether to leave or stay.
Yeah.
And so I just kept through all of this. But to start off with, I also have a daughter who was married to a malignant narcissist, and a granddaughter. While I was going through this, my daughter and my granddaughter were being abused. So it was like triple whammy. And my granddaughter, he started abusing her when she was 4. And she's in therapy now. So I was suffering, and I was suffering for my daughter. But I would research, I would read, I'd read spiritual books. I got counseling from other pastors and other churches in the area. I'd read books, I'd pray, I'd anoint him with oil when he was sleeping.
Yeah.
A lot of advice I got consistently was, you can't change him, you can only change yourself. If you're a good wife, eventually he'll follow your example and come around.
Whoa. Okay.
And I got that advice for years.
Yeah, not good advice. Yeah, not good
To
advice.
stay and pray, they call it.
Yeah, stay and pray.
So stay and pray. So once I decided to, last fall, take the Healing the Wounds of Our Past podcast. And then I did the Boundaries Zoom class. Zoom classes. And it opened my eyes to his that he can't regulate his emotions.
Right.
And he has no desire to change or try.
Yep.
And that I'm not worth fighting for. And so at that time, you sent me the thing about CoupleTalk. It was you, right?
Yep.
And you've always been straight with me.
Yep.
When other people have told me not to try to change him, and you can't change another person.
No.
I thought God could change him, but God will not change somebody that doesn't want to be changed. That is so important for people to know.
Right.
He has a free will. Yep. He can say no to God, and he has said no to God.
Yep.
For 17 and a half years.
Yep. Yeah. I always say, God wants the same thing you want. He wants your marriage to be healthy. Satan's the one that wants your marriage to be bad. God wants your marriage to be healthy. The Holy Spirit is knocking on his heart and saying, this isn't right, but he's dead to it, and he's not open to hearing from the Holy Spirit. So there is no way to change unless he says, unless he has a reason, he has a desire to change. And oftentimes the desire is sparked by the wife or the husband, if it's the wife that's the narcissist, saying, I'm leaving, I'm done, I'm not going to do this anymore. Sometimes that's often what it takes. It's very hard to get to, like you said. You keep waiting and waiting for God to change him, waiting to understand more, to figure out to do the right thing. Super common. I did the same thing. And we don't want to just jump out as Christians. We stay too long. A lot of churches and Christians are worried about telling somebody in a really toxic marriage, you can leave. Well, we stay too long and don't set the boundary soon enough because we're doing all those things. But when you do, you do. So let's when you brought up, you had already told him, right, that you were not going to stay, that you were going to leave. And he knew that something changed in you, right?
Yes. Acceptance. There was one of the lessons was something about accepting things that are like they are. I had to accept that. One of the last huge fights we had, Yeah, he said, asked me earlier if I talked to him about his abuse. I would have never dare use the word abuse in front of him.
Yeah.
But towards the end, I said, you know what? I'm telling him everything I've ever wanted to tell him. So I sat there, and when he'd start to talk, I'm like, shut up. You're going to
Yeah.
listen to me.
Yeah.
You have been psychologically abusing me for 18 years, for 17 and a half years. And I said, I just let him have it. All the things that I was so afraid to say,
Yeah.
I just let him have it. And then I started crying. I was so crying I couldn't talk. I was leaned over the bar and he was like, my goodness, what's wrong? I says, the worst part, I says, is you denying Christ in your life. You're denying you're supposed to be a Christian, and for you to just turn your back on God and our marriage in this way is more than I can bear.
Oh.
And he held me and he said, stop crying. I said, no, I need to cry. I need to cry on you. You need to see how bad it is. And for the first time, he said, I am sorry for what I've done to you for all these years. And that's all I wanted to hear. I wanted him to accept responsibility.
Yeah.
And I told him about couple talk, and I don't know. And he said, well, let me go. And so I'm sitting on the sofa. I'm like, and we weren't having an argument. We were just having a talk. I said, we need to look at this, you know. And to me, I'm like, if this doesn't work, that is it. This is the last hoorah. And so he went in the bedroom and he came back. He said, I went and looked these people up on YouTube. And he said, and I think I like it. I think I like it. We're going to do it. So we did it.
Yeah.
It was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because we didn't order the workbooks and we were trying to follow a PDF and the page numbers weren't the same thing so we were very confused. It was too fast for him. But we got the concept. And he said, and I was going to Boise, Idaho. He said, when you come back, he said, I want me and you to sit down and we're going to go through it slowly together. I thought that was amazing.
Yeah.
We went back from Boise and he kept putting it off. And then I had our sister come in who lived with dementia. She stayed with us for about a week. And he said, we're not going to deal with this until we get her taken care of. And the time when we needed to talk about ourselves the most, she was there.
Yeah.
And he put us on the back burner. So when it came time for us to start it again, it was like, baby, can we do the couple talk tonight? Go ahead. All right. I'm like, well, he was not into it anymore. And that tore me up. So I called Alec.
Yep.
Talked to her about 2 hours on the phone. She asked me a lot of questions about my childhood and everything. And she says, you have to consider him emotionally disabled, Rachel. She says, it's not that he doesn't want to. He doesn't know how.
Yeah.
He doesn't know how to regulate his emotions. He doesn't know how to act.
Yeah.
He doesn't know how to express himself safely. And she said, and once I knew that, I realized what the problem was. And then he was talking to me about my sister, and he said, you know what? We shouldn't have brought her to the mental health clinic. And I thought he was going to say, he wanted her to come stay with us. And I'm like, oh, no. And when I said, oh, no, he lost it. You're interrupting me when I'm trying to talk. And we got into one of the biggest fights ever. And I recorded it. And he went to bed, and I stayed up and I listened to the recording. And I said, I don't deserve this crap. And I packed my bags and I left. And I left him a letter.
Yeah.
I love you. I will never stop loving you. Never. In spite of this, I love you. But I don't deserve this. And we need to continue to get help on this if we stay together. And it's just a nice, loving letter. We need some space, and all this kind of stuff. And so I spent a night at a friend's house. When he woke up and I was gone, that was like a first for him because I always came back crying,
Yeah.
And he called. He said, where are you? I said, I'm out of town. Come back. I'm like, nope. I come back. And so I spent the day. I'd asked you, Carla, how do you know when it's time to leave? You'd sent me a list
Yep.
What is it, must-haves and can't-stands or something like that?
I don't remember exactly what I sent,
But
but
I
I
took it and I'm
laid it
like, this
out.
is what it would take for me to stay.
Yep. Yep.
And in the coffee shop. And you know, when I made the
Oh,
decision,
I told you what I tell. You got to look at the bottom line, minimal changes that you have to have in order to stay. Write it in a list, look at it and say, is he able to do that? And then you give it to him and you say, are you willing to work hard to do these things? And if he says no, you're done. Or if
mhm,
you look at the list and you think he can never do this, then
mhm,
you're done. But
mhm,
a lot of times we're thinking, I want my marriage better, I want my marriage, but I can't stand this. Well, what would better be? And what is the
mhm,
minimal changes
yeah.
that you need to know that it is good to stay? So you have always been very good at doing everything that I suggested.
So I took the list, and not only did I write what the minimum was, but a positive to solution to each one.
Good.
Okay. I said, let's set up, and I told him in the letter, let's not look for blame. Let's look for solutions.
Hmm.
And when he came, and so I called him, so are you ready to come talk to me? And he came and he thought he had taken my letter and wrote everywhere like I was blame, like I'm blamed him for things. Like he saw
Hmm.
everything as a blame, like
Hmm.
I'm blaming him for this. He said, I could give you this, but you'd probably be mad at it when you read it. I'm like, well, I'll read it later. Uh, and he was like, I'm like, what's wrong? He said, what's wrong? He was like, why aren't you crying? Like, I'm sitting there with a latte and a plan,
Yep.
and he had never seen that before. He
Exactly.
knew then, I think he knew then
Yeah.
that I'm going to lose this woman.
Yep.
I'm going to lose this woman.
Yep.
And so we went over the thing and he agreed to do, everything. And we went home and it was awkward.
Yeah.
But one of the things that we learned in couple talk was the showing the appreciation for each other.
Hmm.
So I started first showing appreciation to him. Every day I found something
Mm.
to show him. And then he started, baby, thank you for doing that. And it changes the whole dynamic. I'm telling you, it changes the whole atmosphere. Just that. And hey, baby, I never told you this. I said, but I see you every day, 365 days a year. Go and feed those chickens when it's cold and it's freezing and it's hot. And you're so faithful to take care of those chickens and buy that feed and mix it up. And one day he came to me, and I cry every time I tell somebody this. He says, I watch you. He
Mm.
says, I see the things you do. I see the things you do for other people and how you love them. And you're so smart and talented. And I think it. He said, but I never told you. I never told you.
Whoa.
He says, I'm telling you now.
Oh my God.
And we have not had an argument since in 5 months.
5 months.
And I can talk to him about anything.
Anything.
And he does not explode. I'm not afraid anymore.
Oh.
Not afraid anymore. And I'll tell him. I said, and I'll reinforce. I said, baby, I came to talk to you about this situation the other day, and we were able to have a good conversation, and that made me feel so secure and safe.
Oh.
And you're such a great leader in our family. And
Wow.
that's how it's been going. I validate whenever he does something right, I validate it. When he does something that I think it's wrong, I step back and say, okay, Grace here. Why did he do that like that?
Yeah.
And is it a big deal? Is it a big deal? Don't need to make a deal out of it, you know? And that's how it's been going. And he went to work yesterday in Monroe, Louisiana, which is a 3-hour drive. And then he worked and he came back. And I'm sweeping the floors. He says, I'm going to mop after you do that. I'm like, okay. I said, actually, I prefer if you clean the kitchen and I'll mop. So it's like, it's just different.
Wow. That's
He
wonderful.
has so much peace and so much peace. So, and Dr. Field said a narcissist will never change.
Yeah.
And some people say, oh, you just wait. He'll be back. he's gonna,
Yeah.
but I don't believe that.
Well, it depends. So there are people that are born with narcissistic personality disorder, and technically that means that their brains are wired that way, or
Yeah.
the whole childhood and the damage that's been done from the wounds of the parents or parent has wired their brain to the point where their narcissistic personality disorder, everything is filtered through that. And then there are others that have degrees of narcissistic traits.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the word narcissist is so common in our society right now. Everyone uses it, everyone knows it. When I start a class for women in difficult marriages, I'd say 75% of the women in that class think their husbands are narcissists.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand why, because they see their husbands as being angry and raging and selfish, and they're defensive, and they only care about themselves, and they're not empathetic, and they don't really, care what the woman is feeling, and they can't work through problems, and they don't seem to be bothered that she's in pain. And those are all, parts of what a narcissist does. And like you said, some are covert, some are overt. Your husband really does sound more overt because of the raging,
Mm-hmm.
rather than covert, which is more passive aggressive, although he does play the victim. But it doesn't really matter. It's those traits, and the traits are on a continuum, just like dysfunction is on a continuum from a little bit dysfunctional to extremely dysfunctional. And then there's a whole group of men that are just not taught how to handle their emotions. His example from his mother was to scream and rage. And that's what he did. And he never knew how to regulate his emotions. He didn't know what an emotion was. He didn't have a format. And when you said something that felt shaming to him, like you're not doing this right, or even you're crying, I think I told you one time, felt
Yeah.
shameful to him. You're making your wife cry. So how could he say, when he was feeling that much shame, I care about your crying. What did I do to make you cry? When it felt like it was such a bad reflection of him, and
Mm-hmm.
but by the raging is like to get it to stop so that you
Mm-hmm.
don't do anything that makes me have to question myself. So when there are so many men that just don't have the skills to figure out how to deal with their emotions and how to resolve problems. And really, unfortunately, I mean, in my opinion, it should be taught in high school because it's
Yeah.
not
Huh.
taught in every home. And these are just skills that people need for life to understand how to resolve conflict and how to work through, how to deal with your emotions. But what the test is to get to that point. You had a complete change. You detached, you shut down, you said, I'm not doing things like this anymore. I'm willing to leave. And he saw it. And it
Mm-hmm.
scared him because a lot of women will tell me he doesn't care about the marriage. I'm like, oh, he probably does because he's still
Mm-hmm.
there. If he's still there. So if you set a boundary and he doesn't care about the marriage, then you have no hope.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you set a boundary and it wakes them up, then you have hope. Most of the alcoholics and addicts in AA and Narcotics Anonymous will say that the reason they're there is because somebody gave them an ultimatum: get
Mm-hmm.
into recovery or else. And then they get to the point where they want to get better for themselves. So it gives you the opportunity to draw attention to it in a way. Something has the saying, if nothing changes, nothing changes,
Yeah.
is absolutely true. If you keep reacting the same way that has produced no change, you have got to do something different, and you
Yeah.
got to do something drastic when you're
Yeah.
ready. You're ready when you're ready. You can't do it before you're ready, because you got to be able to follow through. You got to have you changed your behavior. You went and stayed overnight, and then you didn't cry. You were just like, I'm not going to be treated this way. That's it. Here's what has to change. So let's talk about couple talk a little bit. I just remembered, I forgot to put it in front of me. Let me put up this card, because we need to give credit to whom credit is due. I'm going to try to hold this up here. This is Couple Talk. This is a nice little card that I have here. I'll put it over here. And this is where I'll put the link to the website and the program where Alex and Dawn Flecky have written this and teach it. And they do sell the workbooks, which I would highly recommend if you're going to work through it.
Yeah,
And I'll put the website, which is coupletalk.com. There's a Christian and a non-Christian version.
yeah.
And it literally, there's a part one and a part two, and it's all about having a deep connection and then resolving conflict. Did you just do part one?
No, we did both of them.
You
And
did both of them.
this should be taught in high school.
Yes.
I recommend anybody that thinks they might be interested in them to, like, when they finish this podcast, to go pay. Because I saw a Christian counselor by myself. They listened to you, got nowheres. We went to I went to different pastors, like you said, and they tell you to pray, and which I was doing anyway. And one of my ultimatums, he agreed to go for counseling. So we went to counseling. It was $150 an hour.
Yeah, that's cheap actually now.
And
More.
$150, and it was still just a little, like, a wonderful supportive scripture and stuff. But what's said, the counselor told him that he didn't need it anymore, which was not true. So I was going by myself. I was paying $75 an hour. If he'd get mad at me, I'd go pop on the computer and somebody to talk to. I said, if you want to treat me like this, I will pay $75 for somebody to listen to me, you know? But still, it was like, okay, it's fine. But honestly, both people should be working on a marriage, not just one,
Yeah.
you know? And what's missing? So he said, well, I'll go if we'll go to my pastor. So we went to his pastor, and he told us to go home and talk about it.
Yeah. Which didn't work because you had no skills to talk about it.
You need skills. The Bible says to get wisdom, knowledge, and understanding.
Yeah. Wisdom, knowledge, and understanding.
Okay? So the wisdom to know that you need to do something, and then you need to understand how to do it, and the knowledge to do it. Nobody teaches you skills.
Right. Right.
And it's so biblically based, and we learned about love and respect. What I like is we learned how to initiate a conversation. Like, you don't say, we need to talk, you learn how to ask for a conversation in a non-threatening way that won't make somebody defensive.
Right.
How to stay in the conversation. How, if a conversation gets dangerous, like gets antsy, how to say, okay, I'm in the yellow zone now. Can we leave? Come back and talk about it later. Let's go pray. Let's go think about it. Then we come back. I want to spend the rest of my life telling people about couple talk.
Yeah, and the neat thing is you can teach it in churches because it's got the material to lead in your church. If you want to do a church group, a home group with couples that are in a life skills group, or meeting in the home as a fellowship, could do it together. And I know Alex and Don right now actually have a government grant to teach churches to have this in their churches. And they're actually working on that. And but I don't know if they're going to be doing Zoom. They have been doing it periodically on Zoom. I don't know if they're going to be doing that during this time that they're really focusing on spreading it and training churches to do it. But just go to their website and you'll be able to see.
And then they give you a 2-hour, I think a 2-hour free class, a one-on-one session with them. Very, very good.
Yeah, absolutely. So it says no facilitator needed. Host guide enables anyone to lead a class. So literally, and it's cheap. I can't remember how much it is. I would recommend getting the work.
It's $95. It is the price of 2 restaurant meals to save our marriage.
Exactly. Yeah. You put it right in context. 2 meals.
Yeah.
How much does divorce cost? And splitting up a marriage, it costs a lot. And and we're being really positive about this because a good percentage of men that are struggling with this rage and this anger and these abusive behaviors are doing the only thing they know how to do. But they've got to be willing to do something different. So they have to be willing to take a class, but it's the women usually that have to create in them that motivation by letting them know it's not going to continue like this anymore. Otherwise, they will continue to do it the only way they know how to do it. And it's hard for them to face the fact that they are doing something wrong and apologize and be willing to learn. So we do have to create that desire in them often by telling them that that's it. So, and this it's excellent. Here's some examples. Cracking the code. Number one says cracking the code to a deeper connection, trading places, listening fully, expressing yourself, having a couple talk, and growing as a team. Part two says cracking the code to handling conflict, getting a grip on your emotions, digging deeper during disagreements, finding the win-win-win, moving beyond I'm sorry, and making couple talk the new normal. Oops, it looks like we lost her. And so I think I'm gonna have Alex and Dawn on to talk more about couple talk and the skills that they teach and why they're so important. So I will do that. Maybe I'll do that for the next podcast. But I think we've really enjoyed having Rachel today. I knew she would be fun and honest and open, and I knew that you'd get a lot out of it. Again, I'm just gonna say, I'm not promising you that your spouse is going to change doing this. I'm saying create, when you're ready, the incentive through boundaries and a change in the way that you react that lets your spouse or your partner or even anyone in your life know that you're done with things the way they are and that something has to change. And then sit back and see if they're ready to do it. If you are couple talk, if you want to look into this and suggest to your spouse that you do that, it's incredibly cheap and very, very successful. That it's actually a research-based program that has years and years and years of research put into the materials. So I'm going to go ahead and put the link. Thank you for joining us today. And I hope that the ideas that we talked about in this will be the beginning, the catalyst of change in your relationship. Please share this podcast with people that you know need to hear this message. God bless you.